Yeah, that's that coffee.
Yeah, you push it, hold it, and it turns there.
He's looking at you like, you talking about me?
Is he still alive?
No, he
Yeah.
passed away.
I know he was hoping one of them dead.
That's what I thought.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I don't think he
You only
might
turn
have.
on.
I mean, you never know.
That's what I thought.
That way, if you say something under your breath, it doesn't.
Exactly. Looks like I'm good next Wednesday.
Hey, I have a question.
No,
Are we-
no more questions, David.
Are we-
No more questions.
The hearing today, is it? For the leaf fair?
No,
That's next Friday.
27.
Yeah.
27.
That's gonna be a meeting.
27,
yeah.
okay. Oh, well, I had it in my mind.
It's 10:30. You ready?
Stacy gonna be down.
Stacy's
Yeah.
in there. Let me make sure she's ready.
Kim, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're good, Stace? All right. Good morning. I'd like to call our meeting. This is January 7th, 2022. It's a new year, and would like to call this meeting to order. This is a special called meeting. We have a short agenda, and the special called meeting will be followed by our normal work session. So after we adjourn from this special called meeting, we'll open our normal work session. With that said, I'd like to welcome a new magistrate representing District 6, Tim Thompson. He's here with us today, and I'm going to ask Tim to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. And since we're talking about thank yous, let's start this meeting with a thank you to J.R. Brandenburg and our County Road Department for clearing our roads and working well into the night last night and then early again this morning to make sure that Scott County is doing business. We appreciate you, J.R. We want to say thanks to our EMS, fire, and law enforcement, and EMA as well. I know you all were busy as well and had to navigate those roads, and then once you got there, had to navigate the snow and ice, and we're still doing that. So much appreciation goes out to our first responders and everybody that's working out in the elements to deal with things and keep our county running. So thank you all. So with that said, I'd like to ask Stacy Hamilton to officially call the roll.
I hope I'm not yelling. I don't have a clue what my volume's at.
Now you sound good.
Okay. Mr. Hostetler?
Present.
Mr. Lyons?
Here.
Mr. Wallace?
Here.
Mr. Corman?
Present.
Mr. Ellison?
Present.
Mr. Thompson?
Present.
Mr. Livingston?
Here.
Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Judge Covington?
Present. With that said, thank you. The record will reflect that role. Appreciate you all making it in this morning. And this item, number 4 on our agenda, project change order, Lyle Road Soccer Complex. I had shared with you all when we accepted the bids for the site work at Lyle Road that we would have to consider this change order because originally it was in the building specs. And when the bid came back and we did not accept the building spec bid, we needed to add this in as we did kind of in the role of, or line of doing the work, and the bid is $89,600, and Marilla will entertain that from the Younger Electrical Company here in Georgetown. They'll be doing the work. So on this change order, it takes care of all the site electric, and I sent you a schematic of it. There was a change. Instead of running it underneath that big maple tree from the entrance, they're going to run the main line down essentially along the border with the Lemons Mill Elementary, and then cut across in between the soccer field 1 and soccer field 2 to the building. I believe it's a reasonable price, and the reason that we're asking you to consider this today is because since December 27th, PVC's gone up 13%, I believe is what it was, and today would be the last day that the vendor could hold the price on the PVC. So it's a reality. What questions or comments does anyone have related to the change order request?
It's not really a question about just making sure I understand it, because he's correct. Prices for everything are going through the roof, but, I'm in the electrical industry, and it's hard to believe that PVC's gone up, but this is about the third or fourth time in all of last year. Everything else is going up, but this is basically the excavation and installing the conduit.
Excavation, installing the conduit, and pulling the lines, and then it's there when we decide to allocate monies for the lighting. And it doesn't include the fixtures, does not include, that, but it includes the prep.
Yeah. So if we vote for it today, then that'll lock him in to being able to get locked in prices.
Yes,
Because they'll change on Monday.
Yeah.
It's coming. We've already been told that too.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Yeah.
Anything from anyone down here?
Motion for approval.
Motion for approval, second from David Livingston. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all. Number 5 is a Legacy Trail Extension TAP grant application. And I don't know if Kim Rice could join us. I don't think she has. I think she has a conflict with this time. But I wanted to share. Oh, you're here. Okay.
She's the flower.
So you're the flower, the lily of the valley. All right. Kim, thank you for joining us. And Kim has been a very big part of the application and doing all the work on the application, along with some assistance from planning and zoning, Matt Summers and Joe Kane. And then, then we also had some review from the Transportation Cabinet, and we're very optimistic, aren't we, Kim, about the possibility of this grant. But could you share with the court, Kim, the basis for the request and the phone call that you received, and just kind of outline the change that they wanted to share?
Absolutely. Just verify that you can kind of hear me, because I'm having to do this from my earphones today.
No, we can
I'm
hear.
having audio problems.
Yeah, the audio's fine.
Okay, fantastic.
Audio's fine.
Okay, fantastic. So, was it Thursday last week? What day was it? I don't know. I've been in COVID quarantine, so I have no idea what my days are right now. But later last week, I had a call from Kim Tompkins from the Transportation Cabinet, and they are in the final review of the TAP grant project. And we discussed the overall cost estimate that we had on our grant application. And she suggested, in order to make our application a little bit stronger, to take out things like the trailhead in the parking lot as part of our match or part of the project itself, because she was not confident that the federal government would approve that. Typically with the TAP grants, they do not approve trailheads as part of the construction cost. And another concern was basically that the entire bucket for the project for our size community was right around $2 million. And our request exceeded that $2 million. So in order to make our application stronger, that we needed to make some adjustments in order to get us below that threshold to be a stronger application.
And the actual original estimate, total project was $2.7 million. Federal funds requested was 2.2, and our cash match would have been $558,000. With the amended application, the total project cost goes down to $1.985 million, and the federal funds requested goes to $1.588714.13, and our cash match goes down to $397,178.53. So there's the change in the bottom line, and I felt like it was very important since they requested this and we had approved one version of the application, that I needed to bring this back to you all for your consideration. Even though the match is less, I still wanted everybody to understand that there'd been a change. What questions or comments does anyone have for Kim or I?
Just one quick one. I was just, thanks, Judge. I was just wondering, and maybe that's what you explained, Kim. Where's it at in here? That state forces. What does that term?
Yes, we had to remove that too. So for this particular grant, the state actually covers those costs of the state forces. Whereas in other grant opportunities like the CMAQ, and there was a couple more that she named off in my conversation with her that I don't remember, that those fees are a part of the grant application. So I had her speak directly to Mr. Krebs over at Planning and Zoning to make sure that we were doing exactly what we were supposed to do when we recalculated the cost estimate. So that was also removed from the updated estimate based on his conversation with her.
So there's a dollar amount or something that you took out that comes under state forces. I'm just trying to get an understanding of that term, what it meant, what the state, is that something that's what they're calling it because it's something the state pays for, or?
Yes, I believe it has something to do with the inspection process, is with how I understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
What other questions would anyone have? This, I believe this is a fantastic project, and I, support it 100%. And I would ask for your consideration on approval of this amendment of the grant.
Judge, I've always been concerned about coming under the interstate, and I still am, but I think I've seen ways that can be overcome by signage and other things, so I'll make that motion.
Thank you. So we have a motion.
Second motion, but before we do it, I like to comment on that, because every time we talk about this, we talk about that.
Well, I'm concerned. It's a safety issue.
It is, and I always say this because I'm excited and hope that we get the grant, and I've used that trail a lot for bicycling. But it really takes a lot of cyclists off the road where you have 100 of those places. So it's a lot safer to have one where you can kind of navigate that versus a whole bunch of people out on the road with a lot of those places. I think it's a really big safety. I mean, I think that it really improves safety for people who are cycling in our county.
Well, I've got to mention, I've driven trucks through that tunnel, loaded trucks through that tunnel. You come in there on a bright sunny day, you cannot see. That is setting up an extreme danger. Having bicycles in that tunnel with those trucks is not a safe idea without some extreme
Well, I think maybe they could even
But-
put a stop sign
well-
and say, please, you know,
I believe that the potential exists, Alvin, to put on both sides a push button that would activate a stop arm or flashing lights that would reflect that there's oncoming vehicle or pedestrian traffic. And Kim and I have talked about this, and I'm very confident that that can be installed to address that safety concern.
That presents another issue. A large truck takes both lanes to get turned in there. If you got a stop gate, you got both lanes blocked until that clears. So it is an issue.
is it heavily traveled?
During harvest season, yeah, it's pretty busy. And
Because I
it's
know
big-
the other
big
gates,
trucks.
like where they're going to the ag farm for UK, I've never seen them, and I'm sure they do use it. I've just never been there when they're open and being used.
That's a totally different situation.
But
And I don't disagree that it's not, and I think that we can address that. But I think there's a whole lot of other places in the county where there's situations just like that. That hopefully, the bigger the trail, the bigger it is, you know, have more people use it. Because a lot of these big cyclists like to ride 50 miles or long distance, and I think it's a good idea.
But I will, you know, like, we'll do
Who's in
everything
charge
we-
of that? Like, who would be in charge
Well,
of the
once
safety? side?
if we are awarded this grant, then, and Kim, please, after I finish, please give me your feedback on it as well. But if we're awarded this grant, the first thing we will have to consider is hiring an architect to do the final plans. And in that project, that architect would help mitigate risks on the whole project. Kim, is that what you would understand as well?
Yes, and there was a legacy trail extension study in 2012 that addressed that crossing in multiple different options, and that was included in the grant application. I'm sorry. But yes, if we are awarded the grant, the next step would be to hire an architect firm that would not only look at the options that have already been presented in the legacy trail extension study that was done in 2012, but if there's newer other technologies that have, you know, come about in the last 9 years, that those would be also considered too.
All right. Yes, sir.
I'm not opposed to the trail. I'd love to have it. It's just, I'm extremely concerned about the safety of
No, and
those bicycles in that little tunnel.
I respect that. Yes, sir.
To speak to that, because I agree with Alvin, especially from his perspective, because he has personally used that tunnel and has seen a real potential. So I do want to share something. So I have a daughter that lives in Florida in Pinellas County, and they have a trailhead that's 400 some miles, 300, not 80 some miles, I think. Kelly and I have talked about it, and it's a major thing, and they use it heavily. And so they have 4-lane highways that they're lit, there's signage, there's flashing lights, and they cross that 4-lane highway. Then there are other 4-lane highways and 6-lane highways and everything else that they build bridges over. So you see that all throughout that county. It's a big county. There are multiple municipalities, and I'm talking 15 or 18 cities that are in Pinellas County, all with individual governments. But my point is, and that's one of the things that I know this is a serious concern because it only takes one accident. Look, the bicyclist that was killed in our county, I played baseball with him.
On Mile Road.
Yeah, on Mile Road. I played baseball with him in high school, knew him well, knew his family. To Kelly's point, to be able to take as many of those kind of crossings that I saw down in Florida, 4-lane highways, very busy, but they have flashing lights, they have signage, they got push buttons that you could be walking, you can jog on it, there's no motorized vehicles allowed on it, but bicycles and that kind of thing, or walking and jogging. And you see the people come up, they hit the button, when the lights go off, of course, it's up to the traffic to stop because they have the right of way. Anyhow, that's kind of what helped me change, because I want to see it too, But that is a
No.
bad situation, but I believe it can be handled and we can focus on that.
It needs to be addressed, and it will be addressed if we're successful.
Yeah, I said.
And we got a motion, we got a second. Any other questions or comments?
Just like to make a quick comment.
Yes, sir.
I'm excited about this. I agree with Alvin on the safety issue of it. I think that we can overcome that just through study, but we see a lot of accidents where bicycles are involved on the road, so I think it'd be great to be able to get them off of the road, and it's just something that's it's been a great thing just for that connection with Georgetown and Scott County, or I'm sorry, Scott County and Fayette County. So I think it's just a great asset to bring more people in.
I appreciate that comment. Agree. Any other comments? We got a motion and a second. With that said, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Appreciate your all's input and thoughtfulness. And I will say that if we are awarded and get it there, the next step is how do you extend it to the next spot here in Scott County? And we'll be looking at that. Yeah, I know you are. Thank you, Kim. Thank you. So with that said, that concludes our official business for this meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Yeah, motion from Chad Wallace, a second from David Livingston. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned. So now we will open our regular work session, and I'd like to ask Jeff Mudrack to address the court and give the court an update on our OSHA ETS situation. The Supreme Court of the United States of America is addressing this today.
Yes.
After the Sixth Circuit addressed it last week, correct?
Well, I'll give you some.
All right.
I'll give you the timeline here.
I did speak with Rich Ornstein of CAECO this morning, Jeff, and he acknowledged that the Kentucky OSHA will have 1 to 30 days to essentially adopt what has been mandated from the federal government. So I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Judge. Thank you, magistrates. Yes, just to give you some background real quick. Maybe you've seen in the news and things that OSHA published the Emergency Temporary Standard, commonly known as the ETS, which applies to anybody with more than 100 employees, and that was presented on November the 5th. A lot of petitions were filed for review in 12 courts, and very promptly the next day on November the 6th, the Fifth Circuit issued a stay of the Emergency Temporary Standard. So that kind of put that to a halt at that point. The way this works, since there were so many courts involved, they just create a lottery and they pull I guess they put all these numbers in the hat and they pulled a number out, and the Sixth Circuit was selected as the court to hear the case. And on December 17th, the Sixth Circuit granted OSHA's motion with a 2-to-1 decision and dissolved the stay. So that means that it moved forward, which then leads to the Supreme Court hearing this case, and interestingly enough, they're hearing that case today. So, but with some of the articles I've looked at, some of the web resources I've reviewed, I also talked with Steve Morrison on Wednesday afternoon about this very issue, and he had just left a board of directors meeting, and they're very concerned and think that this will go through, that the Supreme Court will uphold the ruling, and that this OSHA Emergency Temporary Standard will go into effect. So with that being said, I didn't feel like it was right for me to sit on my hands here and to just wait for the Supreme Court to make a decision. I've already worked on our policy. I haven't shared it with anybody yet, but I finished up a draft yesterday. And like Judge Covington said, even if it does go through, since Kentucky is a state plan, we still have 30 days to decide or to enact that legislation, which obviously will happen, but we have up to 30 days. Steve Morrison indicated that he believes that the state will take off the full 30 days. They won't do it in day 1 or day 10. They'll take the full 30 days, which buys us some time to get everything in place. What the standard gets into, if you don't know, is either an employee needs to be vaccinated or you have to submit to weekly testing, is the main provision. And then the employee, when they do testing, just needs to upload those results within a week to show that they are complying with the rule. And the whole purpose of this, of course, is to make sure we have a safe workplace. And that, we're not spreading the virus anymore. And, as I've mentioned in some of the past meetings, that becomes very crucial when we're talking about, departments and things where you need 24/7 coverage. When there's a snowstorm and you're trying to make sure that you can clear the roads, we've got to be as careful as we can and try to protect our staff and also make sure we're providing resources and services to the community. So that, for us, is one reason why it would be important. Obviously, there's many other issues with manufacturing, with the airline industry, where obviously this is very important and they're struggling with this. What it means is that if a person needs to be vaccinated, we've got to provide up to 4 hours of time off for them to get vaccinated, if they choose to get vaccinated, and if they have any symptoms or issues with recovering from the vaccination, then they can use up to 2 days of their sick leave to recover from that vaccination. So in preparation for this, knowing that it's going to be really hard to do this in a manual basis, I've also asked Steve Morrison with CAECO, who used to be an executive director with OSHA, to help us with locating some type of a third-party secure system where people could upload their vaccination results, and also it would provide a portal so if a person chooses not to get vaccinated, where they can record the fact that they're complying with the testing requirement and obviously a way for them to upload the results into that system too. We don't know how long this is going to be in effect, but I'm sure it's going to at least be 6 months. Could be the entire year. We don't know. But there's a good chance this Omicron variant could create the herd immunity we're looking for, and hopefully this will subside some too. But, who knows what the future holds. So that's kind of just an update on what we're doing there.
Let me make a comment. I'm very grateful for Jeff, preparing us to deal with this requirement. And thanks for your legwork so far. And, I just can't, there's no road, we've had no roadmap and for COVID, and we've been very appreciative of your work trying to help navigate.
Jeff, on the testing side, is that going to be employee cost?
No, WEDCO.
Well, if you can find a free employers are not required to pay for testing, but there's so many free options out there,
right now.
And we would probably recommend WEDCO be the.
I guess they could have, if they couldn't get into certain free ones, they could go to the doctors, and then that would become a cost, I guess, right?
It would. And also there's some options possibly where a person could even purchase at home test, but then you can't self-administer and self-read it.
Gotcha.
And so that's going to be a little hard to navigate, because then what that means is a person might buy the take-home test, they have to go into the workplace or
with somebody else,
and somebody has to observe it. Which then, if they're positive, now we're exposing an employee. That seems a little challenging to navigate.
Does it specify type of test, or
they're all doing rapid tests. Yeah, it's not a PCR because obviously a PCR test takes a little more time. I mean, it's usually about a 2-day turnaround. But I think most everybody's doing rapid tests. And yeah, trust me, I know there's all kinds of issues with false positives and things, and it's not perfect. And false negatives, yeah. Right. I mean,
Dwayne, to follow up, I talked to Dr. Miller yesterday, and Dr. Miller is reinstituting 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 in-house testing at the health department Monday through Friday. Mm-hmm. So that's a plus for us.
Yeah. But she might run out again, though. It just depends on.
We have a scenario where maybe once a week from 8 to 8:30, we have a preferential 30 minutes for county employees if this all goes into effect. Can we talk with her about that? That way, our folks that aren't vaccinated but need to get tested can go in, get it done, get back to work at 8:30.
We could certainly ask her for that consideration.
Jeff, we haven't asked for vaccination status yet, have we? Or do we have any idea how many people maybe need to get tested?
Not globally, we don't. I know there's some departments that I know, like Chris, I know John, and a couple others have, because we've had outbreaks, and of course then you're trying to do contact tracing, you're trying to figure out who's been vaccinated. But yeah, in a couple departments, I have no doubt that they know exactly. I mean, because you can ask if a person's been vaccinated or not. You can't if they haven't, you can't ask why they haven't. They've chosen
Right.
not to, but at least you can ask.
And I know
if
with
they've been-
information forthcoming, but I didn't know how many people we may have to look at getting tested each week or whatever.
That would be my question.
My guess right now, I wouldn't be surprised if it's not at least 40%.
Really?
Yeah. 60, I think overall, 60% of almost every population or higher. Has been vaccinated.
But 40% not.
Right.
Yeah. So it's going to be a lot of
people.
testing.
The
Getting tested.
age is the thing, the older population is better, but, higher percentage of vaccination than the.
Dr. Wallace, you have a question?
Yeah, Jeff, Tim Jenkins, the PVA, is watching, and he
Okay.
sent me a message. He asked a question: how does the PVA staff comply with working here in the courthouse? Because they're technically employed by the state, but how do they fit into this scenario?
They won't go through us. They'll have to work. I mean, their state, they're going to be covered by the same provisions. They're going to have their own rules that they'll have to comply with. Yeah.
Okay.
But surely they could use the WADCO
Yeah.
testing and.
I can only imagine on the state level, just with how many employees they have, they're going to need all kinds of resources, and testing will be done in probably every county. I mean, that's something maybe we could even look at too. We don't have to use just WEDCO. I mean, because we have people who live in, within a 60-mile radius of here. I mean, Winchester, Richmond, and they may choose to use the health department in their community instead of driving into Georgetown on a Monday.
Reality is we don't know how much time this is going to take somebody to administer to until we know exactly how many. But I agree with you all; it's probably around 40%. But if we don't comply, there's a $14,000 fine
per person,
per week, or per day.
I don't have the detail on that, but it can be
14,000. How'd they pick that out? Hey, I think we'll do 14,000.
Well,
I'm not going to do 15. That's a little bit too much. We'll go with 14.
Lottery of the court. They just threw a bunch of numbers and threw a number out. It's 15,000.
Well, it's 13 and it's not it's 13,658 or something really strange. I don't really answer that question.
So this is reality, and we are trying to prepare ourselves. And once the Supreme Court makes a decision today, and if they uphold it, then Kentucky OSHA will have 1 to 30 days. Hopefully they will give us a little time, but it's a reality. Any other questions?
And it's not
Rick?
daylighted? It doesn't have a sunset clause on any of it?
No, it does not. And all I know is that right now that says that the testing must begin on February the 9th.
Okay.
And even if we get the 30 days, what I'm wondering is if we'll have to hit the ground running on February 9th instead of, because right now you have to start masking up January 10th and you have to start testing February 9th. What I don't know is will we get a 30-day delay in everything? We start masking maybe February 9th and start testing March 9th. My guess is no. My guess is we have to hit the ground running on February 9th with testing.
Rick?
So I know they've taken this case on an emergency basis. I don't know how quickly they'll rule, but I'm assuming pretty quickly. But my question is, you were talking about if somebody has adverse effects when they take the vaccine. You said they could take up to 2 days.
Yeah.
What if it lasts longer?
Then they can.
The reason I'm asking this, I don't know if any of you guys have been to the CDC website, and they got that VAERS reporting system, vaccine adverse effects reporting system, and there's been well over 1 million, and they say on that website, and that's the CDC's website, they got some caveats that they tell you, and it says that it's their expectation is that it's very low amount of what's really happened has been reported. It's like 1% is what they say on their website. I have no idea where they come up with that information. Mm-hmm. It's just there on that website. Over 1 million people has reported adverse effects of varying degrees, from a runny nose, I guess, to some people have been paralyzed. And some people that I've heard give their testimony permanently so far. I mean, it's bad, but on that website, it also says there are over 20,000 people have died from taking the vaccine. That's what, now there are all kind of caveats to how they get those numbers. because almost anybody can report. So that kind of leaves it wide open. But it just brought the question to my mind. You said somebody could use up to 2 days of their sick leave. Well, it's possible that, and I hope not, but it's possible. I actually have a family member that's had a very bad reaction. Anyhow, I won't go into that detail, but they're still messed up. And they're trying to get back to work, but this has been going on for 2 months. And the doctors have told them that's what caused it. This brain, blood clots. That's what they said. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I'm just going by what I've been told by family members.
Well, what the regulations say.
I'm just concerned about if something happens.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a liability, if the way I see it, if the federal government or if we're going to mandate something. It sounds like there's still a choice because they're going to do testing.
Right.
I guess if it stays that way, and then if you choose to get the vaccine under this system, then to me it's a little bit of a liability because most of the time, OSHA, when they mandate something, it's for a job site. It's for EMS folks when they're on duty. They can tell them to wear a mask as an example. They can mandate that. Mm-hmm. And they do that in our industry when we're using a chop saw and dust, and we're supposed to wear them. But that's on the job. But we can take that off. I'm just using that as an example. I can take that off when I go home. You can't take the vaccine off. That's all I'm saying. So I just see a whole lot of issues. And when I saw that stuff on the CDC website, it kind of blew me away, actually. So anyhow, I just see a lot of liability in people's lives possibly. I hope not. I absolutely hope not. I'm not against the vaccines. I think that should be an individual's choice along with their doctor, but this is going past that, it sounds to me like. So, but we still got a choice, like you said.
Yeah, we're not mandating a vaccination.
They can do the testing. I'm okay with that because that's a good way to protect one another. So anyhow, I'm done. I'm just concerned about that liability going forward. I understand all the issues. A snowstorm like we've just had highlights the need to have your staff at full force. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Thank you. I think David was next, and then Tim will call on you.
So my question is, which I had a couple questions, but now I've rolled it through my mind. It wouldn't be a work comp issue because it's not a mandate. So, but
sorry to interrupt, but I cannot hear you. I don't know if it's the mic in front of you or.
Can you hear me, Stacy?
Yeah, yes. I actually messaged Studio 46 privately and told him I cannot hear
What about
the people on the.
What about now?
Barely. Go ahead. I mean, I don't know that there's anything we can do.
What I was getting at was, you mentioned the 2 days. Are those sick days that they would have to take out of their own personal bank, or are those days that would be allotted? Because if they're days that are allotted, then we need to probably change our policy, and I'm assuming you have that in the policy language.
They use their own sick leave. There's no, it's not a,
But
what it is
they
they're
can take their sick leave whenever they want.
Right.
When they're sick. I mean,
but what they're saying is that the government's saying you have to at least let them use 2 days of sick leave. And I think too, and I have to check into this, David. I think if a person doesn't have the time, I think you still have to cover it.
So do we need to change our employee policy? Because if it's not in our
it's a federal regulation. I don't know that we would need to, but let me look into that, and because we got time to investigate that. But I mean, if the government's mandating that you provide them with the leave, then I think there's no question we have to.
Tim?
First off, I think that the most important thing is that we do understand it's not mandated. And I think that probably right now we're in a society that the people that are vaccinated are the ones that are going to be, and the ones that aren't probably the ones that aren't going to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
I think there may be some that change their minds here and there, but more than likely we're probably where we are. I know that for the city, we had Dr. Miller come in, and she spoke to people that weren't vaccinated that were interested just to answer certain questions. I know there's a lot of stuff out there that people have questions about or concerns about. But as far as the vaccine and being able to I had side effects with all three. I've been boosted. The worst thing that I had on the booster was a really sore arm. As far as the first two, yeah, there are some, you feel pretty rough the first couple of days. I would suggest possibly if they're going to get vaccinated, do it on a Wednesday. I know that maybe sets you up for failure because they may automatically take off Thursday, Friday, but that could give them 4 days possibly if they did take off. Just an idea, but again, I think we're not mandating that they get it done, so
Yeah.
that would be the biggest thing that I just want to make sure everybody knew.
Yeah. Thanks, Tim.
What if
Rand
they
Marshall.
didn't test, Jeff? They're not vaccinated and they won't test.
Then
They won't work?
Jeff and
the,
I
gui-
spoke
the
about
guidelines,
this yesterday.
yeah, the guidelines indicate they got to be removed from the workplace until they get tested.
Okay.
Judge Covington, Kim Rice, who's on the Zoom call, has a question, if she could ask.
Thank you, Cam. Go ahead, Kim.
Jeff, how does this address employed minors, employees who are under the age of 18?
Well, since we don't have anybody that falls into that category, Kim, here on our payroll, I don't know the answer to that question. But I could see where that's definitely a question for you, and I think probably Megan would be your resource, if I'm not mistaken.
I would ask your board attorney.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll talk.
Thanks, Cam. Are there any other questions? I just wanted the court to be aware of this and have a frame for what's going on. And Jeff, I appreciate your time, and we'll give an update once we hear from the Supreme Court and then Kentucky OSHA. So,
Can I ask a quick question? So,
yes, sir.
what about the interlocals? So let's say planning and zoning, we don't really have any authority over them.
They're not our employees. They're not our employees, not on our payroll. They're not.
But is the city, or are we working with them? Because I don't think they even have HR. And
Well, are they under 100 employees?
but they're paid.
I think several of them are paid through Georgetown City payroll, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know if that's.
They'll oversee the HR
Yeah.
side of it.
Okay, because that starts getting into a real money
If-
area.
If they don't receive a paycheck from us, it's my opinion that it's not ours to,
Not our circus.
yeah. I mean,
I agree. But we have about 330 or so people by the time you factor in, and this applies to volunteers too. Apparently, I don't think we have any volunteers now. Everybody's on payroll, so it's full-time and part-time people also fall under this.
Volunteers too? Dang.
It would be volunteers as well, yeah.
that
Sorry,
opens up
Dwayne.
Like Dwayne says, volunteers. Because I can hear your head spinning.
What about all the parents volunteering in the class?
I know.
Go ahead, Kim. I can't.
Get out of the pool.
Yeah, well, you sound like you're at the bottom of the pool. Are you down there scrubbing the apron down there on the pool? With that said, we're going to move from that to the subject that I've shared this week about indigent burials and the Georgetown Cemetery, the situation that there is no more room for indigent burials at the Georgetown Cemetery currently. We had hoped that some of the land that's behind the cemetery did not fall under the land and water grant, and that would enable us to expand that area. However, after doing research, Andrew Hartley shared this week that indeed all of that land is covered by land and water grant. So it's going to be an 18 to 24 month process of getting that exempted and changed out. I don't know the official technical word for getting that grant removed, but there's a process, and it's going to be a process that the city moves forward with. Since then, I have been in contact with Keith Murphy, and Keith reached out to the Masonic Cemetery and Stamping Ground Mr. Gwill indicated that to open and close an indigent burial would be an additional expense of $900, Monday through Friday. Monday through Friday. After talking with Mr. Bolt at the Johnson Funeral Home and talking with Mr. Harlan Wilson at Tucker Yoakum, the possibility of the county offering a flat rate of $750 towards an indigent burial or a cremation, and letting individual families make that choice. Both Mr. Bolt and Harlan 100% very much supported that possible change. Right now, the costs are around $2,000 for a indigent burial at Georgetown Cemetery, and if we had to go and go to stamping ground, which we're going to have to, that would move it up to about $2,900. Just to give you a frame of reference, last year, fiscal year, we did 43 total indigent burials. This year, I think we're at 21 at this point. It would be my, from July 1,
Okay.
from July 1 to today,
Okay.
we have completed 21. KRS, the only KRS that speaks to anything related to indigent burials is that if you have an unidentified individual that is deceased, you cannot cremate that individual. The county is required to provide an indigent pauper burial for that person. And so my ask to you is to consider, and to be honest with you, we cannot find anywhere in the minutes where there was an official policy or ordinance related to indigent burials. It's just been a long time standing practice of the fiscal court to do what we've been doing. And both Mr. Bolt and Harlan support moving to the $750 and giving the individual family the choice, but capping it at that $750. I would entertain any questions or comments from anybody on the court.
A couple of questions. The $750 would cover the cost of a cremation.
Yes, sir.
Is there a cap on the indigent if we went that way? The family wanted to have a traditional burial. Is there a plan to keep them at an indigent cost of a reduced cost? I mean, the $2,000 is significantly reduced from a normal cost.
No, it is, and it's both parties indicated that they would continue that practice, but they felt like if all we offered was the $750, that choice would be changed quite a bit by, like it would impact choices. But what I told both parties was that I would get feedback from you all and then send them something via email and on paper to kind of guide what we do going forward. I would ask them just to reply that that they would continue offering the reduced rate of a burial, but they would have to add the $900 stamping ground, the opening and closing fee until the Georgetown Cemetery is opened back up.
Judge, I would just offer that I believe it was last year I was at a conference, a KCO conference, and I brought this up. They had some time like you could bring up, and I would say close to 2/3 of the county magistrates indicated that their county offers cremation services only. There were a few of them that said that they do burials, traditional burials, but majority of them have gone to that, and it's cost driven.
I think we're an outlier on what we do.
That's right.
What other questions or comments?
So the in Stamping Ground, that cemetery, I mean, we're going to be able to use that now because.
They have an
email
open
said-
paupers field that has room.
Okay. But the goal is to get them, I'm assuming, I was in on that.
The goal is to get,
Who else on the court was in on that?
I think Dwayne was on that call.
Yeah. So we kind of kicked that around a little bit, but didn't realize that property was part of that.
Land and water grant.
Yeah.
So the goal is to do the application, remove that area as land and water grant, deed restricted property, and then we could go back to Georgetown. But I would still support keeping the $750 flat fee. So if no one has any opposition, then I will communicate that to our coroner and to both funeral homes of the change in approach.
Judge, thinking forward, so is the city going to move forward on, I think the words Andrew used was a conversion?
Yes.
So that process is?
He's going to start that process
Okay.
He
ASAP.
thought it would probably take at least 2 or 3 months, I think is what he said.
It said 18 to 24 months in the
okay.
email.
I've read it wrong then, yeah.
Yeah, I know it's none of our business because that's the city government, but I'm always concerned when you move a water grant to where you're going to move it to.
It didn't say in the email.
What I want to make sure is when they're going about this process is that it potentially doesn't get moved to an area that falls under interlocal without our input.
I'll ask Andrew about that. And I agree with you that.
Judge, I just have
Tim.
a question. We're looking at trending around 40 a year is what it's looking like even now. So do we have a plan B? Like I know that Georgetown, if that doesn't go through, if there's issues with the water line, press line, is anything like that? And they have that backfield?
I have not investigated that. There's significant space in the pauper field at Stamping Ground. So,
Good for
yeah. If there's no other comments, I will move on. Did want to tell you that I received an email from Spectrum yesterday. They're sharing an update. They're still in that walkout phase, doing the engineering, but they are moving forward with pole engineering and permitting, and that allows them to attach fiber to the utility poles of KU or Bluegrass Energy or Owen Electric. Spectrum has a good working relationship with the local utility providers, and the county's been very helpful in facilitating these relationship. Spectrum's hopeful these permitting process will continue smoothly. With permitting underway, Spectrum will soon have a better sense of where and when construction will begin, and Spectrum and the county are planning to have an official groundbreaking ceremony early in 2022. That's the update. I'll be happy to give any, try to answer any questions, but they're just working diligently doing the engineering and planning. And when you start talking about 5,351 homes to be connected, there's a lot of planning to be done. So,
Judge, you said you were going to share that on your Facebook page. Are you going to do that?
yeah, I'll copy and paste it and share it and make sure that I think they're actually sending it to the paper as well.
Okay.
So that's any questions about that?
Judge?
Yes, sir.
I don't have really a question. Well, I guess it is. Did the mayor of Sadieville get a hold of you?
Yes, we've spoken to him. He started, and
Okay.
I think there was a question about a franchise agreement, and the attorney from Sadieville stopped by and we spoke, and I called Carla Sandusky with Spectrum, put them on the phone, and they're going to work on taking care of that.
Well,
So I tried to help facilitate.
He called me one night earlier before the snowstorm, and I said, better give the judge a call. And,
Yeah.
and I also recommend he call League of Cities to get, what other cities are doing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like he didn't, hey. Ricky did. Good deal.
So,
So-
no, we tried to help
Appreciate
facilitate
that.
and help them.
Which kind of goes back to what you told us 2-3 months ago as an update, that they're looking at Charter Spectrum's looking at hitting Sadieville
Early,
pretty quick.
yeah. That was what was shared.
So by them, right, and by them contacting the mayor and the commission up there, sounds like that's still in the works.
Yeah. Just to make sure everybody knows, the governor signed a bill putting into law, moving the filing deadline to January 25th. That was done, I believe, yesterday. So instead of today, that filing deadline for running for office, local and state level, is moved to January 25th. I have covered what I wanted to cover, other than one last thing. Let me read from my notes. This was changed yesterday. United States Treasury ruled that the first $10 million of every city or county's American Rescue Plan funds, ARPA funds, can be considered lost revenue and therefore can be used for anything that we want to allocate it towards. We've been allocated 5.5 already. We anticipate getting a total of 11 million. That does not count the lost revenue monies that we're doing. We'll have 4 opportunities to do that. So, you know, we've kind of been like in a hold pattern because of wanting to see where our broadband grants come in. And I talked to Heather Mills yesterday. She does not think they'll announce anything until the 1st of February on the NTIA grant money. I need to do some digging at DLG today, Department of Local Government, to see if they have any information about the state fund that we applied for. But, you know, with that change, that gives us more flexibility. And I'll need to reach out to Compass Municipal Advisors and Stites and Harbison and see how this impacts our agreement. Because before, you know, that any ARPA allocated monies that we expended, you know, they were going to advise us on making sure that we were following protocol. And we'll need to reach out and see how that impacts our agreement. And I'll do that with Michelle. Michelle and I'll do that. But I believe, and I'd love to have your feedback on how we can get, you know, some public input on priorities from the community. You know, I really feel very confident about our capital projects work that we did. You know, those are still real money, you know, real priorities. But I do think we need to get a little input from the community, hear from them about any suggestions. I have sat and met with some of our nonprofits. Our nonprofits have requested some consideration, and you know, I think once we get some input from the community and then share what the requests are from some nonprofits, I think then we need to make a comprehensive plan about how to move forward. And then some of the plan, I believe, would include GMWSS with some county water projects. One coming to mind, an elevated storage tank out in the Ironworks road area that would improve pressure and also improve fire safety and water pressure to our fire protection systems out there. So I think that's a priority, and I've talked to Chase Azevedo about that, and we were just kind of in a holding pattern. So I'll try to get more information about Chase about, you know, how much would that really cost. It's been a topic of discussion for many years. I think that's a real priority. What questions or comments would anyone have about about that?
Just to follow along with that line of thinking, where we did the Capital Projects Committee, we had our forum out at Great Crossings High School. Some of the things that we have talked about since then, we might need to look at allocating funds for, such as, if you remember, we had an interlocal committee meeting, David was there, and Alvin. It's been about a year and a half ago. We really talked about putting money towards some planning and zoning. You remember we were going to look at putting money toward a planning and zoning plan to look at our zones and our
Consultant.
yeah, we were going to hire a consultant. And I say that I just bring that up as an example that there may be needs that we're not thinking about from our own government or interlocal government groups that we might need to go back and revisit.
And, you know, along those lines, I've talked with Martin Thomas from the airport,
Yes.
and that goes right along with what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Joe, can we get a list of all the capital projects? I think you all did that prior to me. I haven't seen a list.
I can share it with you.
I don't know, Tim. Probably.
You and Tim, I can share it with you.
Yeah, but Mark, at the airport, they have
Yeah.
some concerns.
Yeah. But, we could do a Google Form survey that we do electronically through social media. That would be one way. That I'd love to hear, any other feedback from you all. I think it's important to get some feedback from the community.
But it's also important to know that we have checked some of those boxes off too. The Lyle Road Soccer Complex, the air tanks for the firefighters.
Air tank, the self-contained breathing apparatus, $1 million rescue truck, a new ambulance.
Generators, I guess.
Well, that hasn't happened yet, but we're working on getting prices on that.
EMS building.
Well, the EMS building was a capital project priority. The sheriff's office was a priority. The Lyle Road Soccer Complex. So I'll get with you and Tim and make sure you all have that information. But we've checked some of those boxes off, and JR's getting a brush truck, but JR also needs some dump trucks coming forward. That was listed in that capital plan.
You gonna be selling a dump truck?
Here we go. So, if you all think that it would be the best avenue is to put together a Google form and ask for feedback on social media and ask people to do that, then we'll try to get that done. Now that Treasury has officially opened that up, then the restrictions are much more eased.
Just a comment, the flexibility is good, that's a good thing. We gotta be careful to avoid the temptation to use these one-time monies to create a recurring expense.
Exactly.
You've got to keep that in mind. These are one-time funds.
I personally think like building a water tower,
Yeah.
that kind of thing that protects people, serves a lot of people for many, many years. I think and would you agree with that,
Yes.
the line of
Yeah,
thinking?
as long as doesn't create a recurring expense.
100%.
I agree with that as well. Don't want to create salaries or anything like that off of it, but as far as the water tower, I think that's of high importance. I know that neighborhood has had issues for a long time with low pressure, and it's just been.
And all they're doing is building more homes
Right.
out that corridor as well. Yes, sir.
Well, I'll throw another one in the pot, another request. I don't know if any of the other guys up here or you, Judge, have had a conversation with Mr. Jenkins, PBA, but they do that aerial flight. I've had that conversation with him, but quite frankly, I've forgotten how often they do that.
He had requested the consideration on looking at that, and it's considerable. It's a couple $100,000 expense.
Do they do that? I can't remember.
We've done it about
Do they do that
5 or 6
annually?
years ago, but they don't do it annually.
I couldn't remember our conversation.
What is it? What are you talking about?
An aerial flyover.
Is that for Eagle View?
Like Eagle View, that documents every building, every structure. And what that does is we get a more accurate assessment of what's there.
But it's bigger than that. I mean, all the agencies use that information. Fire department,
It's an incredible
police,
tool.
sheriff. It's pretty huge.
We use it we can do overhead view, bird's eye view to kind of see how we would come into a building if it was on fire. As far as our inspections, we can do square footage by measuring out distances for hydrants. It's great.
And if it's I can't remember.
Is that something that the court would like us to get a price tag and present exactly.
Yeah, see what their timeframe is,
Yeah.
because I'm agreeing with Alvin and Tim about, we don't want to create.
Well, that also benefit planning and zoning as well.
Well, it benefits the citizens. They
Yeah.
go, the citizens
Yeah, I
can
think
go.
appraisers, surveyors, title attorneys, they all.
It's a broad brush of how people use it in this county.
Sounds like there'd be a lot of partners that could chip in to help pay for it.
Well, the process would be consideration asking the city to pay for half of it. So we'll do that as well.
Sure.
Any other comments? Any comments from any of our magistrates or any of our staff?
I would just say to echo, I can't remember who said it, but I think reaching out to the general public is great, but I think this will be a great time for our directors to be able to really maybe get some of those things that I know that each year when people ask for things, sometimes it's hard to squeeze everything in, but this would be a great opportunity to try to get some of those. Once instead of the needs, maybe, if that makes sense.
I agree. Anything else from anybody? With that said then, we will conclude our work session and you all be safe. We'll talk soon.
I apologize. I've got water under here from my boots.
I'll ask